I think I need to open this video with a confession. I am not a 2D platformer enthusiast. I've always been way more of a 3D guy no matter what game series it is. And I think this stems from a few different things, chiefly being when I grew up I was raised on N64 and GameCube games, so I already had the likes of Mario 64, Sonic Adventure, and Mario Sunshine to enjoy, and so I did. And I think my kid brain was like, Mario Bros. 3, he's all flat and boring and he can't long jump, ew. So I never played many of the classic 2D platformers while I was growing up. I also have a general disdain for how 2D platformers of this era are designed as well. Some intentional designs and hardware limitations all the same. A strange phenomenon that occurred in this era was that the first game in platforming trilogies usually didn't know what they wanted to do at first, leading to difficulty being created by throwing random bullshit at you from off screen that is very hard to react to due to the crunch screen. I would note Sonic 1 is especially guilty of this phenomenon. I am someone who gets frustrated relatively easy, and I will be the first to admit that. So the beginner's trap style design that a lot of classic 2D platformers employ has always been something that turns me away from them. But I have shown to be able to power beyond that frustration to beat stuff like the classic Sonic Quadrilogy and the Super Mario Bros. Games. And of course, if I was barely even willing to touch the genre giants of Mario and Sonic, it makes complete sense how Donkey Kong Country of all games slipped right under my radar, as I have never beaten this game. And that's probably also because I'd never played DK64 until much later in life. In the past, I had done with DKC what I do with a lot of 2D platformers. I'll play through about half of the first world, meet any sort of resistance, and say, yep, that's enough for me, and put the game down for a year. But now, I think it's time to re-examine, because I've heard time and time again how good this trilogy is, and I'm curious to see if Donkey Kong Country fits into the same trends that its contemporaries followed. And in recent years, I've also played Tropical Freeze and enjoyed it, and of course DK Bonanza invigorated my love for the main monkey as well. So let's dive in together and see what treasures this primate holds. Much like any 2D platformer of the era, the story is a pretty simple damsel in distress story. However, instead of a human, the damsel this time is a massive pile of bananas known as the Kong Banana Horde that has been stolen by King K. Rool and his dastardly Kremling crew. Now it's up to Donkey Kong and his nephew and best bud Diddy to defeat K. Rool and return the bananas back home, and along the way he'll be aided in various ways by their Kong allies, Cranky, Funky, and Candy spread out along the DK Isle. Overall, Rare kept it nice and simple for Donkey and Diddy's first adventure, and now you might be saying, Doddboy, you dingus, this isn't Donkey Kong's first game, he was on the arcade cabinet. And wow, Smarty Pants, you're so right, but also no, you dummy head, that was a different guy. And don't ever interrupt me again. Alright, time for a Kong family tree lesson. This old ape, now known as Cranky Kong, is the original Donkey Kong from the arcade games, and as we know, he has a son named Donkey Kong Jr. who had his own game and was featured in various Mario Sports titles. And now this new guy who is confirmed in DKC to be Cranky's grandson, and by proxy DK Jr.'s son, is also named Donkey Kong. So this is a long-winded way to say that modern DK that we see here is actually named Donkey Kong III, since his father is a junior and they have the same name. And also that this curvy-headed dude is a brand new ape. And this design would stay all the way from the time of this game's release until its eventual retirement recently in Mario Kart World. DKC has by far some of the most unique sprite work of all time, and was very revolutionary for the time. The story goes that Rare wanted to create 3D models for their new game, but unfortunately the SNES just could not handle it no matter how much they tried. So to bypass this, they created 3D models in external software, and then traced over every frame of the model's movements with extremely detailed sprite work that leads to the pseudo 3D graphics that DKC has. And what amazes me the most is how much detail and shading they were able to cram into the character sprites, like Crush's tank top, Diddy's t-shirt, or Clump's army belt. Comparing this game to something like Super Mario World gives me a bit of whiplash to remember that they're on the same console. And that's not to say that Mario World looks bad, not at all, it just has such a different look to it. And furthermore, the expressions of DK and Diddy give the art a more alive feeling than the static poses that the likes of Mario are known for. In particular, the opening cutscene where DK does his dumb little dance and his eyes bulge out of his head. I do have my issues with the art style though, mostly just from a gameplay perspective. The lack of a clear and dark outline that is needed to create the pseudo 3D effect often leads to the stages themselves being a bit unclear as to where the landable edges often are. In particular on trees and hills, it can be a bit annoying. Nothing that's going to ruin your experience, but definitely something to be noted. I swear that being employed at Rare gives composers the absolute ability to write perfectly atmospheric music that fits the theme of the world perfectly, and to highlight that, I want to go over some of the best ones and give a little listen to them. The main theme is a funky remix of the main theme from the NES version of the original Donkey Kong, and the World Select theme, Simian Segway, is such a fun little track paired with the walk cycles of the monkeys. DK Island Swing used in the jungle levels beautifully blends animal sounds and drums to give the feeling of a gorilla charging through the jungle, and Minecart Madness invokes the same anxiety that the level design in the minecart stages also does. The water stage theme, Aquatic Ambiance, is one of the most serene songs I have ever heard, which matches so well with the cool blues, purples, and greens of the background, as well as the generally slower paced nature of those stages. And of course, this game has one of my favorite video game tracks of all time, the final boss theme, Gangplank Galleon. I love the way that the song starts out as a jaunty pirate theme and quickly dissolves into a threatening rock theme that makes K. Rool's goofy ass seem way more threatening than he ever has any right to be. I absolutely love the soundtrack for this game and want to give Dave Wise all the credit he deserves for putting this masterpiece together. And of course, another masterpiece are the sound effects in this game. In particular, the death sounds in this game are so funny, like Kanati's grunts, Crush's ogs, Necky's squawks, and my personal favorite Diddy Kong's yip sound while getting hit. Gameplay-wise, Donkey Kong Country is simultaneously at its core a simple 2D platformer and space mechanics, but also has a lot of surrounding extras that give it its own unique flair. Primarily, we have two different Kongs to use, the aforementioned Donkey and Diddy, and they do have the same controls but actually have different attributes. Control-wise, they have a single jump as well as a run button that when pressed begins with a roll attack. Donkey is obviously the heavyweight of the duo, meaning he moves and jumps way slower, however he is able to defeat the larger enemies like Crush and Clump, whereas Diddy just bounces off of them. You can switch between the two with the select button, but you'll spend most of your time with Diddy, as his speed and jumping ability just makes him the objectively better option for your average platforming challenge. However, you will have to be careful as each Kong only has one hit point before being forced to switch to the other. DKC often employs gameplay gimmicks to spice things up. There are a lot of level specific things that I'll talk about when we get to them, but there are a few frequently used ones as well. The most prevalent ones are the barrels. There are several different types that DK and Diddy can interact with, like regular, TNT, and metal barrels that are all picked up with the run button and can be thrown to damage enemies or destroy walls. The tag barrel with the DK symbol on it can also damage enemies, but more importantly will hatch the other Kong if you don't have both present at the moment. Finally, there are non-pick-upable checkpoint barrels, and I think you can figure that one out. Next, the blast barrels come up through a good portion of the levels, and I really don't care for these things. They come in two variants, the plain ones where you manually shoot them, and the versions with the white symbol on them that shoot you automatically. The reason I don't particularly like these is mostly a technology issue. I don't mind them in future iterations, but here they move way too fast, and the physics of DK and Diddy are so heavy. They fall like a goddamn brick no matter the distance, and it can make lining up horizontal shots really tough. However, the worst ones are where the manual barrels spin in a 360-degree circle, which is usually followed by needing to make a diagonal shot or time a shot past an enemy, which is damn near impossible considering the barrel only holds the angle for like 2 frames. It's nothing egregious, but there are 2 levels themed around barrel shots, and they are some of my least favorite in the game. Our final often recurring gimmick are the animal buddies, generally rideable friends that each have their own attributes. Rambi the Rhino is a tank that destroys everything in his path. Espresso the Ostrich runs very fast and can glide. On Guard the Swordfish lets you move freely in water and has a dash attack. Winky the Frog grants a higher jump, and Squawks the Parrot is more of a tool as he carries around a lantern in dark cave levels, but you can't really interact with him per se. I love these little guys. They're just so full of personality, and in particular Winky is so cute and is my favorite to use. For the purposes of this video, I played through DKC twice via NSO for ease of access, and the first time, I'm gonna be honest, I was not having a great time. Playing this game blind is an extremely frustrating experience before you're able to fully comprehend the mechanics and have a better idea of the sudden obstacles that'll pop up off screen at random times. And I would find myself using the rewind feature way more than I care to admit, but for the first time around, I was just trying to get through it and see the later levels. For the first run, it probably didn't help that I played it primarily in handheld mode, which definitely made it harder to spot things as they came on screen. However, everything really changed on my second playthrough via a decent sized monitor. I found myself way more easily able to react to obstacles and found myself getting in a rhythm way more often than I was previously. I found myself flying through the game, and I beat it in just a few hours, whereas the first playthrough I had to do it over the course of a few days. I was just having way more fun than before, and it really dawned on me how unique this game's pace and physics feel to anything I had played in the past. Donkey Kong Country consists of 6 different themed worlds, each with 5 or 6 levels with a boss fight at the end, and a final world which is really just a final boss fight with no levels. The game features a world map similar to Mario 3 or Super Mario World, where you travel on a straight line path and can go back and replay older levels if you so desire. However, this map is far more linear than the others, as you have to complete the stage in front of you and there are no branching paths. Other than the levels, we have 3 NPC run areas that we can visit, like Cranky's Hut, where the old coot will berate us and give hints on how to beat an upcoming level, or find a bonus room within. Funky's Flights is your fast travel mechanism for the game. Jumping in the barrel allows you to quickly go to any previously beaten stage, and Candy runs the save shop, which is the only way to save your progress in this game, as it's a platformer from the 90s, so they hadn't figured out saving after every level yet. Inside each stage lays a traditional run to the right layout of the time, with an exit zone at the end. Alongside the enemies and platforming challenges, we also have a few collectibles to worry about as well. The primary ones you'll see are small bananas and Kong medallions. The bananas are just coins and you collect 100 to get another life. Kong medallions are a bit more sparse, featuring 1 of each letter per level in hard to reach places, similar to things like star coins or green stars in future 2D Mario games. Collecting all 4 also nets you a life. Less common ones will be the red balloons, which give you guessed it, a life. And finally, finally, golden pagan statues of all the animal buddies that when you collect 3 of a specific buddy will transport you to a bonus level using said buddy. Within, you try to collect as many mini statues of the buddy during the time limit, and you're rewarded with, hold on to your hat for this one, more lives. It's kind of funny how all the collectibles just give you lives, but I also greatly appreciate it because for some of the later worlds, you will absolutely need them. And next to your save file, there's a completion percentage that can go all the way up to 101% by finding every secret bonus room in the game, while just beating every level will only give you about 40%. And I didn't bother to look for the secret rooms because they're pretty well hidden, and I've never been the type to explore that much in a 2D platformer, but if I stumble upon one, I always go ahead in and check it out. World 1 Kongo Jungle is a fairly simple set of levels to start off with. Jungle Hijinks is a standard jungle-themed level with nothing too exciting outside of Rambi's first appearance, and being able to visit DK's house in the now empty Banana Horde. Ropey Rampage is centered around climbing and jumping onto swinging ropes, which is good fun, however the stage can be pretty annoying due to the heavy rain and dark background making it hard to see at times, and Reptile Rumble is an extremely simple stage, but is our first cave-themed level. Coral Capers is our first water level and our first appearance of Ungard. Water levels in DKC aren't too bad, they're the same tap the button to say a float system in most 2D platformers, but this imprecise and delayed control scheme clashes a bit more with the level design than in the dry land levels. Fish will fly at you quickly from off-screen as per usual with the enemies in this game, so I often found myself pressing backward before anything even appeared to slow my momentum in case anything did appear, but generally these levels are a bit on the easy side once you know what to expect. Barrel Cannon Canyon is the first barrel themed level, and I've already spoken my piece on these, I just don't vibe with the timing and physics of these at all. Very Naughty is our first boss fight and he is super simple, just dodge his hops and bop his head a few times and he will go down. World 2 Monkey Mines is one of my more favorite worlds in the game. It opens up first with Winky's Walkway, which is a simple stage, but one that introduces my personal favorite animal buddy, Winky the Frog. Minecart Carnage is our first entry in the minecart levels, and these are some of the best in the game, because it keeps the same level design philosophy of throwing stuff at you quickly, but you move automatically, so it makes it easy to look ahead and just focus on jumping, which is a lot of fun. One weird thing that happens to me a lot is that when you get hit during these levels, the cart stops for a second after switching Kongs, and my brain just wants to keep holding right to catch myself, but then I just end up falling off and dying. Bouncy Bonanza is kind of a nothing level, themed on bouncing on tires, but after that is my favorite stage in the game with Stop and Go Station. This place is so weird. The gimmick is they hit these barrels, they change the lighting in the cave that cause these weird invincible rock kremlings known as the Rock Croc to freeze in place for a short time, and you have to rush to the next barrel before they start moving again. It's just such a unique idea that sticks out to me every playthrough. The final level, Millstone Mayhem, is full of naughties inside these giant wheels that can crush you, and I'm not a fan of these levels in general because of these steep slopes, but it's a pretty boring one anyway. Necky the Bird is our next boss fight, and it's pretty simple. It'll just randomly pop his head out and shoot nuts at you. Just dodge and bounce off the tire onto his head a few times. Our third world is Vine Valley, and it's probably the most boring in the game. Vulture Culture is decent enough centered around bouncing off vultures with jumps or blast barrels, and Treetop Town was one of the best aesthetics of any level. I love the treehouse backing of this stage. Forest Frenzy is unique in being almost 75% an auto-scrolling rope level where you have to climb up and down to avoid enemies, but in a way it's kind of similar to the minecart levels in a weird way. Temple Tempest is similar to Millstone Mayhem with the naughty hamster wheels, but this time they Indiana Jones chase you and you have to grab momentum-based ropes to escape. It's pretty fun stuff. Orang-Utan Gang is just an enemy gauntlet disguised as a level. It's just a constant barrage of hopping kremlings and these fucked up barrel throwing orangutan things called Mankey Kongs hucking shit at you the entire time. I'm just not a big fan of this one. Clam City is another water level themed around dodging these clam projectiles that I guess are their pearls? Gross. Bumblebee is probably the most challenging normal boss in the game, at least for me. You have to hit him with the barrel when yellow and dodge his sine wave shaped arcs while he's red. And maybe it's just my inexperience with the game, but I have a ton of trouble timing his attacks. World 4 Gorilla Glacier is probably my least favorite in the game. Now, it is a snow-themed level, but that's not really why, because there aren't really any ice physics or anything in the game, but to me the stages are just in general the worst among the worlds. Snow Barrel Blast is another barrel blast-themed level, and it's the same issues I have with the other barrel blasting, so no sense in repeating here. Slipslide Ride is a super fun level featuring 2 different colored ropes that automatically cause the monkey riding it to slide up or down depending on the color. The level design and enemy placement around these and their physics makes for a great time. Ice Age Alley is honestly one of the most regular levels in the second half of the game. It really is only made interesting by the slippery steep hills. Croctopus Chase is a fairly frustrating water level themed around running away from these octopi, and it's annoying because you have to mash swim fairly hard just to not be hit by them as they move fast as hell. Torchlight Trouble is our one instance of recurring animal buddy Squawks the Parrot. Our good buddy holds a lamp that illuminates a dark cave in the direction that the monkeys are looking, but it's not even too bad as you can still kind of see the enemies even without the light. And Rope Bridge Rumble is exactly the same in layout to Treetop Town, but just has different enemy layouts, so it's pretty boring. Really Naughty is our next boss, and the premise is pretty much the same as our first Naughty fight. However, he jumps faster and further to attack, but you defeat him the same way. World 5 Kremkroc Industries has the most unique look to it, being mostly set in an industrial factory as opposed to the natural jungles and forests of before. Oil Drum Alley is a super tough way to begin the world. It uses flaming oil barrels as its main platforms, and the fire will lower and raise on a timer, but the window where you can land on these barrels is super small, so chaining together a few can be really difficult. I couldn't do it without having to damage boost after losing a Kong. After is one of the few auto-scrollers in the game with Trick Track Trek, taking place on this small treadmill platform, and it's not too difficult, but it can be a bit tricky to maneuver sometimes. And Elevator Antics is, as the name describes, elevator based, with you having to time jumps to land on these elevators as they lower and raise, nothing too crazy. Poison Pond is a straightforward water level that can be a bit challenging due to the tires in the level moving very fast, which caught me off guard a few times. And Minecart Madness is just more minecart fun, the same as before. Blackout Basement is probably the worst stage in the game. It's a fairly simple stage in terms of design, but the lights will just periodically cut out and it's just annoying as hell, especially when the Mankey Kongs are hucking barrels at you. Boss Dum Drum is the most unique boss fight in the game, in the sense that it's not really a boss fight, but rather a gauntlet of enemy pairs with a stomping attack in between. But you don't actually attack the drum, just the enemies themselves. And this fight is also pretty unique in that DK is actually the preferred option for once, because towards the end of the fight, 2 clumps will spawn and it's easier to take them out as the Elder Ape. World 6 Chimp Caverns and its levels are entirely set inside of caves, and they're pretty tough on average. Tanked Up Trouble is the same style level as Trick Track Trek, except with the added suspense of having a fuel gauge, which is replenished by grabbing the fuel barrels as you pass. And it can be pretty anxiety-inducing because you cannot miss a single barrel or you will not get to the next one. Manic Mincers is one of the hardest levels in the game. The timing and spacing on the jumps near the spiky wheels can be pretty insane, and Misty Mine is super annoying for me because I always find the hitboxes on the snake enemies to be super janky. Loopy Lights is similar to Stop and Go Station, as there will be scattered barrels that when touched turn on the lights for a short duration, and you can technically beat the level without turning them on, but good luck as it gets really dark in there. The final level, Platform Perils, is centered around platforms with arrows on them that will move in said direction that the arrow is pointing until falling. Nothing too crazy for our final stop. For our final regular boss fight, we have a rematch against Neki. This fight is exactly the same as before, except he spits out the nuts a bit faster. It's same as before, just jump on the tire and take him out. Our final world isn't really a world at all, but rather just another boss stage against the big bad boss of the Kremlin crew, and he is by far and away the toughest boss in the game, not only in terms of taking the most hits to defeat, but also in terms of learning his patterns. To start, it's fairly simple. He will throw his crown at you, revealing his vulnerable head, and after hitting, he will charge at you a variable number of times depending on how many hits he's taken. And after just a few hits, he will go down and the credits will roll. But not actually, as they're just a decoy Kremlin-themed fake credit sequence. After the fake credits end, K-Rool will get back up, and this is where the real fight begins. You still damage him in the same way, however, instead of just running at you, he will drop tightly congested waves of cannonballs on you and jump across the screen, which is much harder to avoid. The second phase is much harder than the first and requires around double the amount of hits, but once you hear his triple sound effect, he will stay down for good. And while this fight is good challenging fun, to me it isn't why this is such a special boss fight. To me, the best part about this fight is the similarly named music track Gangplank Galleon. This song begins as a jaunty pirate tune that quickly devolves into a sinister rock track, and it's just absolutely perfect. I love both the chiptune version here and the later remixes in newer games like Smash Ultimate. It's just a perfect song that fits K-Rool's goofy yet threatening vibe. Following the fight, the actual credits roll, and we get a cute character roll of the enemies and the animal buddies doing their walk cycles across the screen as their names flash on the bottom. And of course, our main Kongs get to run through their emote wheels at the end of the sequence. At the end, Cranky tells us that he could have done this all in under an hour without losing 1 life, which gave way to the idea of Cranky's challenge, which is, as he says, beating the game deathless with 101% completion in under an hour, which sounds absolutely miserable to me, but I'm sure for the more dedicated fans this can be a fun challenge. But the funniest part is that you don't even get a reward for doing this, as it was originally intended, but never made it into the final release. As the credits fade to black, this brings us to the end of our monkey-filled journey, and what a ride that was. At the same time, I'm both sad that this was a game I never experienced when I had a sense of childlike wonder that would incentivize me to explore every nook and cranny a bit more, but also kind of glad I didn't finish it until now, because like I said earlier, my opinion of 2D platformers has only strengthened over the years, which I believe allowed me to enjoy this game much more in the present day as a result. Donkey Kong Country is such a unique experience that attempts so many different types of gimmick-themed levels that all still stick to the core feel that the game has, in the sense that even the bad stages still feel like they fit in with the rest, even if I don't necessarily like them. I truly do mean what I said in the title. This is absolutely one of the best 2D platformers I've ever played. It's a great time to just blast through this game and its wacky worlds that are full of style. And if Super Mario Bros. Wonder didn't exist, I think it would be my favorite 2D platformer of all time. And from what I've heard, the sequels are even better, so I'm very excited to check those out in the future. But that's for another time. Let me know what you guys think of DKC in the comments below, and if you stuck it out all the way to the end, thank you very much. And if you enjoyed the video, I hope you take the time to like, comment, and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great day.